Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Good day, good day, good day. I had to regroup with my sound check. I'm having a little bit of technical adversities. Thank you all for standing by and hanging in there. So, once again, I'm going to say good day, good day, good day to all, and welcome to All for Success. Um, as usual, we are sometimes experiencing technical difficulties, but we're able to get them back on track. I hope you guys can hear me. If you can, drop a thumbs up in the chat and let us know that you are out there and can be heard and that I can be heard. Um, what I would like to do is invite you all that are getting ready for church this morning to go ahead and listen in while you're getting dressed and getting ready to get out the door. Most of my friends and relatives will be headed to their morning church services or any type of services that are going on this morning. If that's you, please listen in while you're doing that. I did have to move my live event to Sunday this week. I was in a travel mode, and because I was traveling yesterday, it was beautiful though. The weather was lovely on the road. I wasn't able to log on and participate. So I'm hoping that I'll get an opportunity to catch up with what we're doing and chat a little bit about what went on this week. Sit down, everybody, get your coffee ready so you can relax if you have time to sit and relax and have your coffee. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what we saw happening over the past week. And that is, of course, in the world of everything Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Um, Most of us who are on these channels that are supportive of the family, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, we have a lot of perspectives on what we have been seeing over the past few days. And I know that if any of you are like me, you've been listening to all of what I call the super channels and their take on the situations that are unfolding right before our eyes. It is absolutely fascinating. So we're going to talk about that, and then we might, of course, because we're all for success X, we might throw in a couple of thoughts and a perspective or two that may not be in the main view. So that's what I'm hoping to put out there, and we'll see how that goes. Okay. Now, also, everybody who's on their fitness journey, keep us posted of how you're doing on your fitness journey. Um, I do get to report that I was able to get to the gym 2 days last week, and I spent quite a bit of time on the elliptical. I enjoy the elliptical. I noticed that it doesn't take as much of a toll on the body as, say, jogging outside, but it does get you that cardio that you might appreciate or might want. So keep that in mind. But please leave in the comments section and in the chats how you're doing as you try to move along in your fitness journey. Let us know if you were able to get your walking steps in or if you're working on any other type of fitness program. I like to hear how everyone is doing because it's definitely motivational for me to keep moving. Thank you so much. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to attempt here to see if I can pull up a few of these little photos that I like as my favorites, and we'll see if we can chat a little bit about what went on this past week. So let me see if I have my slides in the right place. I don't know. It's going to be a struggle. It's what they say. It's looking like struggle streaming already. But let's see what we can do. Because if not, we will just continue to watch the coffee and see how the coffee goes. Am I right? Let's see what we have here. We have, okay, so some of this I might have to do on the fly. I might have to work on the fly, modify as I go. But hopefully you all will be able to see some of this or hear some of this and you might find it fascinating. Okay, I always like to open just like I might have to close. Isn't Doria lovely? She just really is. She's just a lovely person. But we'll talk about that because as I always show her photo, I really like her photo, and I'm going to look for some more outside of her dancing at a Beyonce concert. It's just really, I feel really a kindred spirit, right? In that she's the mother of adult children, and so am I. So it means we're in the same age range or age bracket, which makes um, a lot of what I'm sure she might be concerned about or thinking about, it might be very similar to how I think and feel. And that's just because we're moms of adult children. Adult children do so many wonderful things, and you just want to watch them explore life and you want to watch them achieve whatever their goals are. So that's important to me. So I always like to start off with a thought, like of course, as most of us who are part of the Sussex projection, as many of us are the supportive type of personalities in the all things Duke and Duchess of Success. I'm going to just take a second here and go over why many of us, and I'm going to speak for myself, but it's a thought that might be for many other people, why this topic of the Duke and Duchess of Success, why many of us actually take time out of our lives or out of our day to speak about the fact that we feel like this couple should be supported in the things that they are trying to attempt, or rather, supported in the situation of their family dynamic. Many people might wonder what is the importance here. Why should I, and I hear this often when you mention, oh my gosh, this is happening with Harry and Meghan. Now I probably sound like a school kid zealot, like a school kid talking about some new fad or trend, and you're speaking about it, and everyone is looking at you and they roll their eyes because they have no interest in what you're talking about, and they're not really as spun up on the topic as you are, right? Of course, when you think about childhood, it might be kids that used to be interested in Pokemon, right? Kids that were interested in collecting Beanie Babies way back, um, people who had a fascination with various workout bands, or people who were in singing groups. There were some kids that could talk about what was happening with individuals in singing groups as if they lived with them, right? So those are the things that brought that to the surface, those type of interests. But the key is people will feel not quite that type of closeness, I would say, with what the situation is with Harry and Meghan. And they may, in fact, not realize why other people seem to be interested in following what is happening with them or being concerned. All right. So, just for a hot second, let me tell you why Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Success, are an interesting topic. Their situation, their life situation, is an example of what is common to almost everyone in the world who has a family. You are living in a family dynamic, or you are existing among family members that you may or may not get along with 100% of the time. Most of us who have brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and cousins, you know that you have had agreements with them and disagreements with them. Now, the only difference in this particular case is that this family has always been a family that there has been a perception that you know more about them than any other family. You think that because they have been in the public eye, that you know what their lives are about. Like, people see the royal families and they think super rich, they don't do anything for themselves, everyone takes care of them, and that they would have no reason ever to have any kind of discontent. Well, Here's the interesting thing about that particular viewpoint is that this viewpoint is really a projection, and it has been really for thousands of years. It is a perception that you have been given. It is similar to what is reality TV today. It is a story that has been given to us to believe in. So you have these um, characters that are kings and queens, and then their children become kings and queens, and then all of their distant family members become very important figures all through your nation. They perform specific duties and they support specific events, and that's why they have patronages, and they are moving and what I would call shepherding the wealth of nations. At least this is the past view of what the royal family stood for. Now, when you boil down to the core of who these people are or how they began, you have to realize that you boil down to the core of people who were ruthless, vicious conquerors of all that they wanted to conquer. They fought wars, they got people to go along with them, and they went from place to place, basically pillaging, killing, rampaging, and pillaging. That is the core and the source of most royal families. So what we're watching is what happens, what is happening in this family. Now, we've read these stories throughout history. Any of us that were in school and we watched these films, we've read stories throughout history that talked about how royal families operate and what they are supposed to do and how they are supposed to do it. And what you find is that in this particular case, the curtain has over time slipped a little with the marriage of Diana to Prince Charles. That was a little bit of the curtain slipping. Instead of this beautiful, continuous, happy, loving couple marriage, that was like a fairy tale, you actually saw that later on that the parties involved were not nearly as happy and um, exceedingly positive as it appeared, right? And so this again is what is occurring with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Now, why are we watching it? Because you are looking at how this operation conducted itself, how this operation continued to make itself believable as a family of, I would say, um, governance, as a family of whatever they have been projecting in the media. Well, they projected the royal family to be, upstanding, straightforward. They projected that they were fair. They might be tough, but they're fair. That each of the people in the family were going to do good and serve their nation, right? But then you see an event where a couple, they meet and their story is actually like the fairy tale, and then all of the outside forces try to make um, some type of advantage out of who they are, what they believe in, and trying to control every aspect of how they operate. Now, it only proved to be difficult because Meghan, being in this union, was not an individual from a country that was groomed to be under that type of control, especially when, in their opinion or from their viewpoint, that control from the royal family began to look like abuse. Okay. And so this is where the story began to change. So the reason that this is, I would like to say, is it important or is it not important? It depends on your perspective and your viewpoint. But the most important thing to take away from this particular situation is how people are being, and this is key, led to perceive certain things. You are, if you gain nothing from this particular dilemma between Harry and Meghan and the royal family, the one thing that I hope you do perceive and that you do pick up on is the fact that there is a force that is trying to make you believe what they want you to believe. And so you as an individual, you have to determine how much of this are you going to accept? How much of or how much are you going to question? How are you going to look at this? And then how are you going to interpret it? All right? That being said, let's talk about the subject of the week. Okay. So, in the subject of the week, and I'm not going to give all the full details because I know every super channel out there, every squatty channel out there has gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. But the big picture is this. One of the biggest detractors of Meghan primarily, although Harry and Meghan do come up, but the media has definitely made it an overarching effort that if they're going to make a villain in the story of damage to the monarchy, that villain is going to be Meghan, okay? Because she comes from America, she married into the royal family, and she's destroying the monarchy. All right, now that's the narrative. And one of the biggest detractors of that and the biggest storytellers of that narrative is our favorite Dan Wooten. Well, for those of us who've been following all week, it appears that because he, with his partners in this diabolical pretend newscast, because they pretended to have a diabolical conversation about yet another journalist, the way they were speaking about this journalist, the things they said about this journalist, which boiled down to she was unattractive and that no one would want her, which had absolutely nothing to do with the topic that they were at odds about. For example, I think they were at odds about a topic involving suicide prevention, things like that. But instead of discussing that, they started talking about nobody else would want her and how no one would want her. And on they went with this. And so, this particular scenario that they went through earlier this week brought them to the situation of both of them being asked to step away from the pretend news desks and the pretend interview desk. Basically, they both got suspended. And then, about a day later, because they couldn't leave it alone and they wouldn't be quiet, and they continued to say things that made the networks angry and the management a little angry, they were basically asked to depart from the company. And that's GB News. Now, you have to remember, again, this is things that are satellite to the support of Harry and Meghan. But GB News, all the talk TV shows, all of those, what I call tabloid TV shows, they have a mission. And that mission is that Meghan is a villain. Now, they've been doing this for what? 6 years? 5, 6 years? There have been complaints here and there. One of the major people that ran into a wall was Jacobson, because he had dreams of seeing Meghan marched through the streets. Okay. So he's one of the main focuses that actually lost his position. But you would think that they have been doing this for 5, 6 years. It's day in and day out, 5, 6 years, nonstop derision. Every headline cover of every magazine, tabloid. Meghan Meghan, hatred of Meghan. It hasn't slowed down and it hasn't stopped. And Dan Wooten was purposeful that 4 days out of 5 days of the week, he was going to throw in Meghan derision. Well, this week, one comment by him and another caster, I think the man's name is Lawrence Fox, one comment this day, that one comment was more than the news could handle, that panel or GB News. This time, this one dialogue between these two people talking about no one would want her, that sent evidently the entire news apparatus and put them on high alert. And this was enough to get Mr. Wooten suspended. So it was fascinating to watch. Many of the people who are pro Harry and Meghan are quite happy to see Mr. Wooten fall from that position that he held for such a while, right? But he did, in fact, come down a peg here. Now, what we're going to do, right, is we're going to stand by and we're going to watch just how this all plays out, because often these things get turned around. And the other thing that happened is Mr. Rupert Murdoch, who has been at the head of all these tabloid pieces of trash, I would call it, the Daily Mail and all of these tabloid media products, he stepped down formally, and basically his empire is now being taken over by his son. So the question might be, are we slowly seeing a change in the tabloid tapestry because he is supposedly stepping back? Maybe. Maybe it is an intervention and they're trying to prevent having to deal with lawsuits that probably will come their way. Let's not forget, Harry's lawsuits will crank back up in January. So you don't know if they're trying to make some type of strategic move to get ahead of that, or if there is actually um, some type of management change that is going to demand that these tabloid type media outlets become a little bit less provocative and insulting of other people, because they spend, again, you have to pay attention to the UK tabloids on their talk television shows. They will spend 5 minutes diatribing on insulting an individual. They will spend that amount of time calling a person various names rather than speaking to the subject matter, right? They're not going to talk about, for example, how to better handle immigration. They're not going to talk about wages and people who are currently on the picket lines. And they're not going to talk about the train problems. They're not going to talk about the pay gaps at the National Health Service. But what they are going to do is sit in front of the camera and call people names. Uh-oh, someone in my area is fussing and trying to take over my live chat. There's a little baby out here and they are really, really mad. Okay, everybody. So just hang on. We're going to see if they'll stop fussing. But someone has made her mad. Oh my goodness. Oh, I love little babies. And when they cry, it makes me sad. Okay. But so where was I? Rupert Murdoch. Yes, he stepped back from his position. But don't worry, his son is going to take over. And as always, that doesn't mean things will get better. It just means maybe the dirt will be hidden in a different fashion. Okay? So we're going to have to stick through watching how this all plays out. Okay? So I'm going to celebrate quietly as each one of these personalities move off of the scene. And hopefully, even if people are rather pro Meghan and Harry or anti Meghan and Harry, the key is you don't have to be hateful, cruel, and nasty. And this is what the royal family is learning. They're throwing everything at the walls in the fake media. Oh, or I shouldn't say fake media like it's not real, but they're throwing everything at the walls in the public sphere to try to get a feel for how Harry and Meghan should be treated. And it is amazing to me how often the people who are supposed to be supportive of the royals, the people who are supposedly working for the royals in some capacity, whether they are journalists that follow the royals around or the royal rota, as they term it, the people who are writing the stories that are supposed to give the royals better press, this group of people, and I mean, I don't know if they're listening. If you want to help me get my views up, that's great. But that advice to be cruel, which they call courage, and I do not know who told them this, but I mean, these are the schools and this is the training that they get. They believe that cruelty equals courage, and they believe that it shows strength to do the wrong thing. Now, everyone in the UK watched, and let's look at this. Everyone in the UK watched the Queen give Harry a gift of a cottage. Here is a gift. And everyone watched your other family members take it from you. If that's not jealousy, envy, and cruelty, I don't know what is. How you call that strength and courage? It's you're looking at a dictionary that I don't have. But it is an amazing concept. This is how these people operate. And there are several characters, and you will see them. I could call their names, and you'll know them because the other squad, the Super Squad channels talk about them all the time. You will see these people sit on television channels speaking to themselves, saying, oh, he's showing great strength. He's showing courage. And he should continue to strip Harry of all of his rights and privileges of the family. Now, listen to that comment. Strip a person of their family. Okay? This is what they are advising the royal family to do. And this is the sad part. Because the royal family, the top shelf, is organized the way it is, they are trained only to perform like a puppet. And so they indeed will do that because they have no knowledge to operate any differently. And they definitely don't have any conscience that will help them navigate through this. They're getting advice from these very um, dark people who have no understanding of the world outside of the realm in which they live. It will be that they will put themselves in the same situation as the royal families all over the world that found themselves running from the pitchforks and torches. And that is because the people around them do not understand the world they're in, nor do they understand the time. So Dan Wooten has fallen, Rupert Murdoch has stepped back, and then there's another cast, a whole host of characters in the future that may also find themselves eventually in the same spot. I mean, there's a whole batch of them. So there are more of them to come down the pike, and we will see if they all make their rounds. And of course, if I get the opportunity to add to the photos that of Pierce Morgan, we will all perhaps do the happy dance and sing a happy song. Now, and this is, of course, the portion that we will see if they all find themselves a party to. Now, with that, we're going to take a moment. I want to take a moment and remind everyone again, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit the notification bell so that you get a message of when I'm going to put something up. I'm going to try to do a little bit more as time goes on because as we are all going down this road, we are learning some of the ins and outs. Please add to your to the comments any thoughts or ideas or anything that you have an interest in that you might want me to chat about. And I am hoping that you like, share, and subscribe and tell others to join in my channel. And I try to keep things, if you're looking for a Sussex channel and a perspective that tries to keep things in a positive light, that's going to be here, okay? Because that's what I want to do. And we also want to support each other in the endeavors that we have. So keep that in mind and always like and subscribe because that's what keeps me going. I really enjoy keeping that going. All right, so here's where we're going to go next. Like I said, I promised you I wasn't going to keep you all day. Well, that's what I said, right? I'm not going to keep you long. I'm not going to keep you here forever. And I wasn't going to make you stay. Okay, so it is the month of October. And it is 1 October. And so, what I wanted to pitch out, and I'm going to do more each week, I'm going to do something else, but it's going to be along the same line because October, as we all know it, is the month where we talk about Halloween for those who participate in Halloween. Now, many people who are very dutiful in their church journey, many of the people who are dutiful in their church journey, they don't spend a lot of time dealing with things Halloween. They don't. They don't like to, participate in some of the um, methodology which surrounds Halloween. And that is completely and totally understandable. But the reason that I'm going to talk a little bit about it this month is there are several concepts that have become, of course, things that Halloween and our practice of Halloween here in the United States has made allurances to, which have become somewhat common, right? When you think about perhaps maybe 150 years ago, correct? Just that short period of time, that would be in our lifespan, it would be maybe two generations. You could have a great grandmother that was alive 100 some years ago. But things that were not considered acceptable, right? And there are things that have now become commonplace. So the idea of talking about things that were occult, the concept of the occult, would have been very much shunned. But in today's environment, one of our largest masterful movie productions is Harry Potter. And Harry Potter is a show that is primarily about the practices of the occult, right? So there are a lot of things that in our day and time these days is far more um, considered far more casual and far more commonplace. And we don't associate those things in the biblical, anti-biblical, or anti-religious sense. And I don't mean the Bible as an exact book, because I want to make sure I specify that I'm not trying to give a religious lesson here or sway people to a religious thought process. I'm only using the example, or I'm only mentioning it as it is, as it applies here in our culture, because in the US that's a very large part of our culture, and it doesn't matter what religion you are, there are certain things that are very common. Okay, so Halloween used to be one of those things that people would, who consider themselves very heavily devout in their faith, generally didn't participate in, right? And there are some religions that don't do that now. So this this particular practice had a very high probability of talking about things that are considered witchcraft. Now, I want to take a second here. Oopsie. Okay, folks, I'm dropping stuff. But I'm going to take a second here and I want to define for you if I can find my definition. It's amazing how when you have slides up and things and you start looking for something, you can't find it. Okay. You can't find what you're looking for, no matter what you're doing. Okay, but I wanted to point this out. I'm gonna just give this thought. Now, I'm gonna be talking about things a lot from the voyage of biblical terms, and that's just because that's what I'm most familiar with. But you can always look these things up and find out more about them in any other avenue. But I wanted to mention, because again, it's October and we're coming up on Halloween. There is a practice it's called witchcraft, right? And I'm going to read a definition of it from a biblical point of view. So, from the biblical point of view, all sorcery is portrayed as evil, right? And they're saying witchcraft is something that trusts in a power outside of God, right? So basically, if you are seeking to have power in the world or in the universe or how things work, but you're not going through God's power, then it's going to be opposed to Christianity, right? And so this opposition to Christianity is considered to have an origin in the opposite, right? And that is the source of witchcraft. Now, for those of you who are biblically inclined, you can read a little bit more about that in John 8. Okay. John 8 in the New Testament, they talk a little bit more about that. But the reason that I am talking about it, like I said, I'm not trying to take you all to church, although I could do that, but I'm not going to do that, is that this practice has certain features and it has certain elements to it. Now, I don't know if many of you pay, like I said, if you pay attention to the super channels, there is a concept that is constantly brought up. And for me, it's kind of humorous. I look at it and I think, oh my gosh, wow. But I want you to understand that there is a concept when things come around Harry and Meghan, and you look at the things that they're doing in their lives and how the maneuvering that they try to do just to move away, live quiet, kind of quietly, step back from some of the royal duties, and the interaction primarily with the major senior elements of the royal family. When they tried to do that, there was a force that reached out, no matter where they went, to seed information and concepts of negativity about them, to say negative things about them, to do negative things to them. Case in point, they moved to Canada, and then the royal family decided to announce you can't have security protection any longer. Okay. We're gonna you're gone for a while. Okay, well, we're gonna take the house back that the queen gave you, right? No matter all of the lists of things that and people who have covered this in the magazines, they had a litany of things listed that were wrong for Meghan to do, right? It was wrong of her to eat avocado from the depths of the rainforest, and she was creating an economic, I mean, no, what do you call it, an environmental crisis. It's wrong for her to pull her hair up and pull her hair back and put it up in a bun. That's wrong. It's wrong for her to cross her legs at the knee, and it was wrong for her to wear a dress that showed her shoulders. All of these things. Okay. Then, as time creeps by, everything that was listed for the wrongs and the don't do's, the royal family, senior members, if you notice, you're looking at pictures of them doing those things, performing those acts. Hairstyles looking similar, clothes, wearing some of the same clothing that they said was so atrocious, colors that you weren't supposed, they were talking about the colors of the clothes, and we're going to all wear the same color because that's now a thing. So everything that you do and say, this force reaches out and tries to take what you're doing and saying and then take ownership of it. Okay? So, what am I talking about? You're like, where is this going? Well, as I'm going to introduce to you for the rest of October, we're going to talk about forms of witchcraft. There is a form of witchcraft which is called mimicry. And I'll bet many of you are like, really? Stop. And you're going to wonder, why am I bringing that up? Well, I want you to realize that there are things that people do, practices that people have, that they may not assign that practice a particular title. They may not say that that practice comes from a particular source. But for those of us who have a broader perspective, we might see the connections. We may see what is similar, right? Well, in witchcraft, those who study witchcraft, there is a very great um, partition, which is psychological. There is a huge element to that craft that is psychological. Now, why is that? Well, as the definition stated, when you are trying to control your universe and control your world, from a Christian perspective, you're actually trying to move God out of the picture and take control yourself. And that very action is considered anti Christian or what I would call anti religious, because you are trying to be the master rather than understanding that God is in control of it all. So, this is important to understand that the psychology behind what might be happening to, let's say, Harry and Meghan, the psychology behind it comes from a place of trying to be in control. Now, I can create a psychological diversion by mimicking what other people are doing. And that psychological diversion, the masses of people looking at it will forget who is the origin of what. They will misassign where something comes from. They will misassign what should be credited, right? And of course, in the Christian faith, if you credit anything other than God, you're already going to be in the wrong place. And so the term mimicry speaks to trying to perform that action or looking like you are in the action of controlling particular things, right? Oh, there's so much more to this. There really is. And I'll try to talk, I'll try to bring up little pieces of it and I'll give you some references and we'll talk a little bit more about it because psychologically, these games that we'll call these psychological games. But in the olden days, just 100 years ago, in fact, these types of maneuvers would have been attributed, right, to the practice of witchcraft. And I thought this was fascinating to understand. I thought it was a fascinating topic because it will give to you a different perspective of how to see what might be going on in our world today. Anyway, we're going to talk more about that as October goes along, and especially as we get closer to Halloween. But I want to leave you with that thought. Now, I am going to start to wrap it up here. I wanted to look down through the comments to see if there's anything I need to uh, need to respond to, and I would like to say, let's see. I'm going to say good morning to all the folks who are signed on. Hello, King Concepts. Hello, hello. I'm going to say, yes, again, like and subscribe. I'm looking at LL has said good morning. Hi, Rosa Roberts. Hello, hello. It's so good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I hope that you get something out of all of my ramblings. I know I go all over the place, but I'm hoping that all of you will enjoy joining in. And please feel free to leave comments, any type of constructive information I will definitely take in. Oh, and hello, LL. She says it's celebrated. Let's see what you got here. LL is telling us that it is celebrated when a father abandons his son, but when a daughter moves away from a toxic father, it seems to be a problem, and that the double standard is horrendous. Yeah, it's always a little bit different how things are looked at when a woman does something as opposed to when a man does it. And of course, that is a part of the fabric of our existence. So, unfortunately, right, or fortunately, however you want to see this, you do have to take a read that when things are occurring, when something is happening, you do have to understand what we call our current reality. And that is where we sometimes run into a lot of conflict because we may not appreciate the reality that we're looking at, right? But that is something that we're going through. So yeah, we do have to deal with that, and we do have to fight that sometimes. And then you have to understand too that when you are a woman, right? If you are female and you're a woman, you do have to look at that world and place yourself in that world, understanding that you indeed are female, and that this sometimes is how this realm applies to you. And it is sometimes it's tough to work around and work with, but in fact it does um, usually go well if you kind of keep that in mind. So I want to say thanks again to all of you for being here and sharing with me today. And we're going to talk more about some of these, what we call psychological games today, which was the witchcraft of the past. But we're going to talk about where we're seeing these psychological games and what, in fact, they might be trying to accomplish. So you have to sometimes understand what you are dealing with and what you are looking at, as opposed to just, seeing that you're absorbing all of the nonsense that some of these people are throwing at us. So lastly, we're going to congratulate our couple on attending the 805 charity with Kevin Costner. I thought that was a wonderful event. We're going to learn more about it, but they raised money for the fire departments in California and in their region, actually, the Santa Barbara, Montecito area. So they did a great thing there. And of course, this seemed to catch everybody off guard. But remember, their team is going to be working very hard to try to always dilute what Harry and Meghan do. They're always going to try to shift your thought process towards it while they pump up the artificial activities of others. So we're going to keep that in mind. And finally, I'm going to say, once again, Doria, as usual, will be looking good. And we're going to look at things from the perspective of supporting, of course, our adult children. And we're going to stay fast, and we're going to keep our prayers for the family, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, or by any other name that they might be called. So we're going to keep that in mind. And thank you all. I appreciate all of your participation and all of your commentary. We're going to keep looking at it. And I am going to slowly, slowly get myself back on track for Sunday. And for those of you who headed off to church, I hope you're in there and enjoying the services of your choice. Thank you all, and hope to see you all very soon. If I get myself together, I'll be back, hopefully back on schedule next week, but we will see. We will see how that works out. And we will try it again. All right, so let's give ourselves an applause as we exit.